When a proposal for a 530,000 square foot office scheme in Preston emerges, you know something in property investors' big clever spreadsheets has changed. That something is the yield gap. I'm David Thame, analysis editor at Place North. In today's Place podcast, we'll look at the widening gap between London and regional office yields and why that's good for the regions. We'll also celebrate the return of the North's original prophet of skyscrapers and mark progress at York Central. Is now the time to be mulling a 530,000 square foot office-led redevelopment in central Preston? Belfast-based Martin Property Group think so, as they prep plans for 4 blocks on the surface car parks of the town's Fishergate shopping centre. It's very early days. Martin has asked for a scoping opinion from planners, but this is worth watching as fingers in the wind go. It's a very useful one. So some background. Fishergate is one of several regional shopping centres acquired by Martin in a recent splurge. They paid about 8 million in 2021, which is an absolute bargain. Investors have had their eye on this kind of site for some time, and the presumption has been that residential redevelopment would make most sense of this town centre real estate. Martin are exploring the possibility that the answer is, in part, offices. The proposal is to begin with about 100,000 square feet in one corner of the car park, and then build on through blocks of 70, 150-ish and 200,000. All are close to the railway station and to the shops, so they're ideal for many business occupiers. The rest of the Fishergate centre will probably have a more residential feel. It will be taller. Now, 2 factors make this very large office scheme seem plausible. First, there's very little good quality office space in Preston. If you turn to the Central Lancashire Employment Land Update, not a catchy title, but it was published recently, 2022, and it suggests that about 22,000 office jobs, which is more than half the Central Lancashire total, are in the city. And the city's crop of office occupiers is growing very much faster than its neighbours in Chorley and South Ribble. So this is a big and growing business. Now, there's a lot of room for debate about how much of what the city's office market needs. The 2022 analysis is pretty clear. Smaller, flexible space is what's required most. It says, and I'm quoting here, further development of office uses in Preston city centre is inhibited by a lack of modern multi-occupancy space. With a lot of secondary stock here being converted to other uses, the longer-term prospect of building up Preston's office market would be dependent on delivering new or refurbished premises into the city centre. And the document added, demand for new large-scale space remains modest and does not yet seem to support large-scale investment in new build options. But don't be downcast. Martin will probably have first mover advantage, will be the only show in town in fact, and they can phase development to match demand, whatever that demand turns out to be. Plus they have additional comfort factor coming from the much bigger European level property dynamics we're now experiencing. This is where we begin to talk about yield gaps. Investors like yield gaps, and there's a wide and growing gap between the returns on office development in central London and offices in the regions. Savills, who often look into this kind of thing, took a peek last week and they recorded that the gap is 2.6%, the highest it's been for 32 years. They concluded that this gap could drive increased investment because who wouldn't want to make 2.6 extra on their money? Whilst returns on office property are still on the whole unimpressive, they are improving, and they're improving fastest in the regions. So, Savills said, there will be office occupiers that seek the best-in-class space, but at a discount to other office markets across the world, including London. And this is a future driver for regional office markets in the UK. This, coupled with the high yield gap, presents an attractive investor position for UK regional offices, Savills said. At an even more macro level, investors looking across Europe see the UK as an increasingly good bet. Yes, there are still problems with high financing costs, lower collateral values and structural changes, all stressing commercial mortgages and loans. But the view of some senior figures, such as the senior credit officer at Moody's Ratings, much more opposite can you get, who reckon that that's all turning. Unlike Western Europe, the UK's markets corrected earlier, which leads them to anticipate a recovery for those markets in the second half of this year. Fingers crossed that's right. Back in Preston, an apparent shortage of office space, plus first mover advantage, plus investor interest equals a good thing. What would make it a fantastic thing is a bit of public sector help. Can Martin Group expect that? The Fisher Group site is part of the Station Quarter office corridor, which extends down to County Hall and up to the university. It was meant to capitalise on Preston's status as an HS2 high-speed rail stop. That, of course, isn't happening anymore. Doesn't really affect the plan, and the City Council very much wants to see Grade A office space built. It has a master plan which says just that. Some kind of wrap-around lease might be just what the Fishergate scheme needs. In that scenario, the City Council takes a 3-year lease, and if Martin let it above the rent the council pay, the council get a refund. So the public sector doesn't lose out, and they've done a good thing. They've bridged the gap. The City Council wouldn't be drawn on whether this was a possibility, but when approached by Subplot, they said that it is, quote, working with partners on the Preston Regeneration Board to explore what support is required to provide a comprehensive development in line with the objectives of the Station Quarter Regeneration Framework. In the meantime, work is going on to revise the original city investment plan. None of this is a no, you will notice. We've been in touch with Martin Group to ask if some kind of public sector support would be required in their view, but haven't yet had a reply. Opportunity-driven investment in Preston's retail sector could turn out in the end to be a gift to the growth of Preston's office sector. And it won't be the only second-tier northern office market to see some interesting proposals emerge in the course of this year. And now your weekly rundown of what's going up and what's heading the other way in the Place North elevator. Doors closing, going up. Big comebacks always make news. You've just celebrated Easter. But the return of Hugh Frost, founder of the Beetham organisation, to the Liverpool property scene is a cracker. Beetham's pre-Great Financial Crisis development record was impressive and crowned by 3 towers in Liverpool, Manchester and Birmingham. The northern skyscraper revolution wasn't entirely Frost's idea, but he was certainly their prophet, and by mixing hotels with apartments, he created a formula that allowed such enormously risky, capital-intensive projects to get out of the ground. Now Beetham has acquired a site at Gibraltar Brow in Liverpool. Planning documents suggest it's suitable for 1,200 homes, and the idea is to get the old band together and create another skyscraper in the shadow of West Tower, which was Beetham's first 40-storey block, completed in 2005. Frost has had the patience, endurance or luck to reappear at a time probably more favourable to big resi towers than it was in the noughties. Cushman and Wakefield data published this week suggests about a 300% increase in investment since then. As part of analysis of the lovely upward ticking trend lines and weightier portfolio allocations the living sector now boasts, private rental and student housing are top picks among investors, but every line is going up. Liverpool City Council's limited enthusiasm for skyscrapers and the expectations of the funding market are the trip hazards Frost has to avoid. The Cushman and Wakefield report suggests joint ventures are in a lot of investors' minds just now, and most think the market is hitting the bottom at this very moment. That means money people want experienced developer friends, and they want them now. If Frost is to overcome the trip hazards, this is probably his golden opportunity. Some fairly quick footwork means it's taken just 4 months for McLaren Property and Arlington Real Estate to sign a development agreement for the £2.5 billion York Central site. Homes England and Network Rail Property are the counterparties on the scheme, due to deliver 2,500 homes and 1 million square feet of commercial floor space. Work is already underway on around £135 million worth of infrastructure, vital if the landlocked site is to be opened up. This includes 2 kilometres of new roads, 2 new bridges. The phased development itself won't be as fast-paced as the deal. It is slated for completion by 2035. The world may look very different by then, perhaps as different as today is from the early noughties when the York Central Plan first emerged. Back then, nobody had heard of build to rent, and if they had, they would have laughed. Likewise, life science labs and co-working and the other plate spinners of today's property market. And that's the danger of big projects like this. Either development agreements that freeze the scheme in the past, or they permit a constant effort to reimagine them to capitalise on an ever-changing market. Either way, that's not good news. We've approached the landlords, developers and the council about how long the recently signed deal was due to last and when the breaks or drop-outs occur. There's been no reply yet, but keep your eyes open. That's it for this week. We've seen how a widening yield gap in the office market provides an opportunity for canny developers, watched prospects for Liverpool's skyscraper development suddenly get a lot better, and noticed a promising week for York if the timetable for York Central works. For more about the built environment in the north, visit placenorth.co.uk. I'm David Thame, and thank you for listening.